We are honored to welcome back to the View the 44th President of the United States, Barack Obama.
It's good to be back.
Well, we're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now we know why you like to come to the show.
I like hanging out with women. What can I tell you? What can I tell you?
Is it true that you were going to announce the gay marriage thing on this show?
It was a possibility. It was. We had been discussing it for a few weeks, and we thought, what are formats where we can talk about it, not just as a policy issue, but as a personal issue.
Right.
And all of you came to mind.
Well, Vice President Biden jumped the gun a little bit. That was, he sort of, you were planning to say it, but he seemed to jump the gun. Were you okay with that? Or
I was okay with it because it came out of a generosity of spirit. You know, when you get to know Joe Biden, he is the most honest, straightforward guy. He's warm. He tells you what he thinks.
Did you tell him what you thought about his doing that?
You know, we talked about it, and what I said was that, I am never going to blame anybody for telling what they believe. Because I think it's important, for everybody in my administration to feel like, we want to be disciplined, we want to make sure we're getting the message out there, but at the same time, on issues of principle, I always admire people who go ahead and speak their minds.
Well, we're happy that you did it with our colleagues on GMA, but we would sort of like to do this.
What can I tell you?
Well, next time you're going to announce something huge, just call any one of us. We can help pick up the phone.
You can myself. You can.
So, let's move it along a little bit, because you did make that historic decision to say that you're in favor of gay marriage. There are 30 states which are not, but there are also federal laws that impinge on the rights of gays. They can't file a joint income tax reports. They don't have Social Security that they can pass to each other. Will you now fight for a federal bill that gives the same rights to heterosexuals that the federal bill now does not give to gays?
Well, keep in mind that on issues like Social Security, for example, a lot of this has to do with what's called the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA. It was passed originally when Hawaii started making noises about recognizing same-sex marriage. The idea was, well, we don't want that drifting into the federal government. And this is part of the reason why my Justice Department has said to the courts, we don't think the Defense of Marriage Act is constitutional. This is something that historically had been determined at the state level. And part of my believing ultimately that civil unions weren't sufficient, and I've been a long-time supporter of civil unions for same-sex couples, was partly because of the issue of Social Security benefits or other laws, estate taxes, things like that. Part of it was also, though, just knowing friends and family, people that I'd gotten to know who had these wonderful relationships, and they'd say to me, you know what, the words matter. So even though you're a strong supporter of civil unions, somehow it still says we're different.
Sure.
And that particular set of conversations that I had is ultimately what led me to this conclusion.
Well, you've talked about talking with your Attorney General. Will you personally fight to repeal that act?
Well, look, Congress is clearly on notice that I think it's a bad idea. And this is going to be a big contrast in the campaign, because we've got Governor Romney saying that we should actually have a constitutional amendment installing the notion that you can't have same-sex marriages. And, I think something I tried to say in the interview that I want to repeat is I'm very respectful of people's differences on this issue, that, there are folks who are sincere in their faith, in their beliefs. I think it's very important for us to make sure that churches and other religious institutions have the freedom to make their own determinations about what their religious sacraments are. But when it comes to civil law, when it comes to the rights that are recognized by the state, then I think it's very important to make sure that everybody's treated fairly, everybody's treated equally. Yeah, that's been a principle of American life for a long time.
Do you think it will hurt you in the fall? Do you think it's going to hurt you in November?
You know, I think it's very hard to say. There's no doubt that for some folks who have very sincere, legitimate beliefs about traditional marriage, and who do so because they appreciate that family is the foundation of this country and healthy communities. I think some will say, look, I like Barack, but I just strongly disagree with him on this. And I've got friends. I've got pastors and people who have been great supporters, great friends who I've spoken to, and they said, look, we love you, but we just disagree with you on this thing. And what I've said to them is, you know, in the same way that you wouldn't want me saying something I don't believe in, I don't expect you to say something that you don't believe in.
Mr. President, I agree. I mean, you and I shared the view in terms of rights for gay couples and gay marriage. You know, after hearing your position, one that you held for your entire presidency up until, what, maybe 5 days ago, you and Mitt Romney actually agreed personally on the definition of marriage. Now that you have a new personal definition of it, practically speaking, how will you move things forward any more than Mitt Romney in terms of leaving it to the states? Because at this point, you've both said, we'll leave it to the states to decide. Will that be your plan moving
Elizabeth,
forward?
Actually, that's not true.
Okay.
I mean, Mitt Romney has said he wants a constitutional amendment. That's not a state issue. That federalizes the whole issue. And that's a major difference. He would defend the Defense Against Marriage Act. That's a federal issue that says even the state of New York that has made a determination that we recognize same-sex couples, same-sex marriage, that will not be recognized at the federal level. So there are real differences here. But look, ultimately, I just have to say, this is not an issue that, as important as it is, I think is probably going to determine the election, going back to your point, Joey.
Sure.
What's going to determine the election is the economy and whether everybody, gay, straight, black, white, Hispanic, Latino, Native American, disabled, you name it, whether people feel Asian.
Don't forget.
Whether people feel as if you know, America continues to be this extraordinary land of opportunity. And there are some very stark differences, legitimate differences between the candidates and between the parties in terms of how we are going to make sure that everybody in this country gets a fair shot, every kid's getting a great education, how we create businesses, how we're creating more jobs. That ultimately is going to be, I think, what determines how this election goes.
President Obama, to take it a little bit further, you know, so now you've officially kicked off your campaign for a second term. It was tight with John McCain back in 2008. So how tight do you think it's going to be with Mitt Romney?
When your name is Barack Obama, it's always tight. You know, Barack Hussein Obama. Barack Hussein Obama.
Why do you say that now after 4 years?
No, I think it's going to be tight because the fact of the matter is that, you know, the country has gone through a very difficult time. The worst financial crisis, worst economic crisis since the 1930s. And the fact is that as much progress as we've made, you know, 4 million jobs over the last couple of years, 1 million in the last 6 months, you know, despite the fact that businesses are investing again, and despite the fact that we're seeing, you know, a steady bump up in the economic indicators, there are a lot of folks who are still hurting out there. There are a lot of folks who still are looking for work. You know, I was in Nevada because we were announcing a plan to make sure that everybody can refinance their homes. You've got entire communities where folks' homes are underwater because the housing bubble burst. And in that kind of environment, you know, it's a tough environment, and people say, you know what, I like the president, I think he's trying hard, but, you know, there's still a lot of problems in my life, and that means that they're going to take a look at all the options, and that's how democracy should work.
So just before we, because we're going to come back, but just before we leave, so who's going to win?
Well, I'm going to win.
would be cool.
You know a lot about politics. You know about the law.
We are happy to be back with President Barack Obama. Whoopi, I know you had something on your mind.
Well, I do, Mr. President. You know, you took a lot of flack for passing the stimulus bill, thank you, and helping out the banks, and then you took a lot of flack because people felt you didn't do enough with the folks who were responsible. They didn't go to jail, nobody got into trouble. So now I'm wondering, because I watched this J.P. Morgan Chase thing just go down, I'm wondering, A, what do you think happened, and B, sir, what are you going to do about it? Because there's got to be, this has to be the last straw.
Well, look, first of all, J.P. Morgan is one of the best managed banks there is. Jamie Dimon, the head of it, is one of the